Ex-incels of Reddit, what caused you to go down that path? And what helped you change? I was raised by TV and movies, and I think a lot of it came from there. Like such and such character who was a nerdy guy was getting laid constantly. So WTF, why wasn't I? I'm way nerdier than him. I was. And I'm so much nicer. I wasn't. Plus we look the exact same. So it's not just an attractive thing. We didn't. I guess I just grew up. Stopped playing the victim 100% of the time and started to get introspective. Asked myself some hard questions and pretty much surmised that I wouldn't wanna frick me either. Basically, if these guys would spend as much time as they do complaining about what they are owed, working on themselves, they'd get what they deserve in no time. Like many in this thread, I was never a full-on incel, but I was definitely on the path. Grew up as a single kid raised by a single mother, so almost all of the experience that I got was from movies and shows, so I totally bought into the nice guys finish last mentality. Funny enough, the thing that broke me out of it was some rando anon on 4chan, circa 2010, went off about how nice guys aren't actually that nice and that you have to make yourself worth something if you want anyone to be interested in you. He went a bit more in depth, but it really hit me like a brick and made me re-evaluate at the way I saw myself. This was well before people were called incels or even before the term was nice guy. I had just always thought I had hard luck and that women were attracted to dirtbags or mean people. Outside of a brief getting my head out of my butt senior year of high school, where I stopped caring what other people thought, I went through this period until late freshman year of college. I remember the moment everything changed very clearly. I was in a crowded dorm room with a bunch of other people. I had been standing up for a while and decided to sit down. The closest place to sit was the foot of the bed of the girl whose room it was. She was sitting on the middle of the bed. Quick aside about this girl, who I will refer to as G. She's one of the nicest, most genuine people I've ever met. Just flat out nice to everyone. Even my roommate, who almost everybody hated, but that's another story. G was always willing to help. Super smart. Went on to volunteer with the Peace Corps and then went into deaf education. She was just one of those exceptional people, which is why it hit me with a ton of bricks how wide G's eyes got and how quickly she scooted away from me. I can still see the horror in her eyes. This was someone who was nice to and genuinely liked by everyone as far as I knew. But clearly there was something amiss. It wasn't her. It could not have been her. It was me. I didn't stay much longer after that. I spent most of the rest of freshman year by myself soul searching. I had a lot to work through. It was time well spent and a necessary series of growth steps. The problem wasn't all of these other people. The problem was me. And I had spent years not being honest with myself and instead using my lack of self-confidence as an excuse. Sophomore year ended up being much better. This reminds me of a consent campaign in college that hit me hard. I'm a woman. One of the posters said consent is asking someone if you can sit next to them in the cafeteria. It really opened my eyes as to why I avoided certain people and why certain interactions made me so uncomfortable. In any type of relationship, even a friendship, you have to respect each other's space. What caused me to go down that path was media, as in stories and movies and cartoons. I'm surprised no one else has stated that answer yet. Honestly, as kids, we're constantly bombarded with representations of the big, mean guy loses the girl, and the good, kind guy gets the girl. I was pretty convinced that the way to get girls to like you was to be nice to them, as that's what I was taught. However, what makes people like other people is so complicated that it's branded with the vague term of whether or not they have chemistry. Being nice is, well, nice, but it ostensibly just means not being a jackass, and that, in and of itself, isn't going to woo anyone. However, no one ever taught me about that part of it. I was expected to just infer it, I guess, and everyone but me managed to do that. I was a boring nerd in high school. I wore clothes that were too big for me. I had terrible acne, and I am and have always been ridiculously short for a boy. I was nice to girls, and I mean that in a genuine way. I didn't expect compensation for being nice. I just naively hoped that girls would like me because of it, but I never got a serious girlfriend. Because my social skills were so bad that people would internally cringe just by being around me. I wasn't liked. I didn't get bullied much. Outside of the one time I asked a popular girl out to a school dance, and she decided to then spread awful lies about me so that everyone felt justified in harassing me and taunting me for months, causing my already non-existent self-confidence to plummet. But I was excluded and didn't have any close friends, further stunting my social development. What prevented me from going full-on incel was the fact that, perhaps due to self-loathing, I never blamed women for not liking me. I just figured I had crappy luck, that the fact that no girls liked me was just a series of unlucky coincidences, or perhaps something just wrong with me, rather than something wrong with women. I never felt like anyone owed me anything for my attempts at kindness. In late university, by pure luck, I finally got a girlfriend. She took the time to sit me down and explain a lot about social interaction and feelings and so on, and my social skills developed a lot through her. I'll forever owe her for that. However, 3.5 years later, she broke up with me in a way that fiercely reinforced and validated all of my worst insecurities. Despite everything that I was taught, despite how well life is going for me in every other respect, I'm struggling quite heavily in attracting anyone. I'm lonely and depressed, and the fact that just about any woman could have me if she wanted, yet I can't attract any women at all, is doing a lot of awful things to my mental state. I have to consciously avoid becoming jaded or judgmental. It was overcompensation just because someone told me in 6th grade I'll never get a girlfriend. 15 years of overcompensation, to be specific. Shortly put, I was pursuing relationships for all the wrong reasons. I turned down some people because I was a selfish butthole who had to have the ideal woman. Most of the girls I fell for wasn't because I was actually into them. It was because I was so desperate to prove a point. Then finally came a year where I realized no one gives a crap, and everyone's more concerned with their own issues. Most of the happy couples I envied on social media either broke up or turned out to be very toxic relationships. The few that still lasted, well, they were actually in love with each other for the right reasons. It took a lot of self-loathing and self-reflection to realize what a fool I was. A lot of people probably hate me for the way I behaved, but I can't change the past. That same year, I actually had my first one-night stand. A month later, I got into a relationship with someone else. Still together as of today. The sympathy and relatability of the group drew me in. They were saying what I was feeling at the time. That dating felt unfair as a dude these days with no advice on how to improve. The thing is, a lot of base claims they make are true. They are just hidden under layers and layers of frustration and hatred that the people making them just can't be taken seriously. Never became a full-fledged incel, but was going down that path. You know the mindset. I was beginning to harbor the I'm a nice guy, so why don't girls suck my dong thought process. Then at a certain point I just suddenly realized that girls are human, and they aren't any more obligated to suck random dongs than I was when someone did something nice for me. I was never at the level of incel, but I remember a dark time in my past where my guy online profile said something along the lines of hopeless romantic, emphasis on the hopeless. In all honesty, it just took getting away from my computer and the internet for a while and interacting with more people in the real world. Personally, I believe a lot of incel neckbird types get as bad as they do because creating and fostering a virtual relationship is completely different from working on a real life relationship. Because these people don't know how to maintain their real world relationships, they turn to the internet to criticize the people who reject them. Basically, the only way to get better is to get perspective about yourself. And that is hard to do unless you get away from the people and environments that enable you to maintain your toxic habits and attitudes. Because these people don't know how to maintain their real world relationships, they turn to the internet to criticize the people who reject them. I think Reddit just flinched. I wouldn't call myself an incel, but I did share a lot of opinions that the community tends to have based on my own experiences in life. Pretty much my loneliness made me bitter towards everyone else. I tried to rationalize my loneliness, and the idea that women are the shallow creatures who only prefer rich men who are attractive made sense to me, as I saw myself as the opposite. I've changed to the point where I do recognize my own part in my loneliness, and I can't fault anyone for having a preference for someone who is successful, but I still feel like a lot of people are shallow, but that's life. I am the same way. I have ASPD with sociopathic tendencies, but I am able to recognize that my thoughts and assumptions are irrational and I cannot act or vocalize them. It took me some time before I came to that realization. The problem wasn't them. The problem was me. And when I say it was me, that's not just dating and relationships. I had a lot of issues, and I needed to correct them. So I killed the aspects of myself that were problematic and incompatible with what I wanted, realizing they were preventing me from getting what I wanted most. What I wanted meant more than preserving the things in myself that I knew were actually worthless and a hindrance to me. I was into that nice guy mentality up until about high school when multiple people on the internet knocked some sense into me by saying nice guys who expect P are not nice guys and are in fact just as toxic as those chads. It really woke me up. I'm slowly working myself up to breaking out of my anxious shell and actually pursuing relationships, but I'm definitely not an incel. Not a former incel, but definitely a recovering nice guy. Honestly, when I realized I had no personality aside from my expected vocation, becoming a lawyer, when I was in my first year of law school in late 2013, I was also overweight bordering on obese, which I didn't realize until my career advisor took a look at me and said, yeah, you're not a candidate for JAG because of the physical requirements. So, I decided to start going to the gym, eating healthier, tracking calories and losing weight. I got my head out of my butt and started caring about new things and getting involved in softball leagues and the like, and started traveling more and getting myself out there. So while I am a lawyer doing what I enjoy as my vocation, I've had a more fulfilling life, and sure, I've dated a few women as time went on. As of now I'm single, but it's not something I really think about or harp on. Real incels don't tend to post on us Reddit. Probably never was a full-fledged incel as in woman hating, but I'm involuntarily celibate and have the same self-loathing etc as incels. I am someone who is too empathetic to others to blame anything on anyone but myself. But I am still a kissless virgin with bad social skills at 22 and little to no opportunity to meet new people, women. Depression, a whole childhood of being bullied, and social isolation does keep you from getting better and reinforces itself. Only since 2-ish months have I not been depressed for as long as I can remember. I never realized thinking about killing yourself every other day was abnormal. I could have never imagined going for straight months without thinking about suicide. I couldn't have thought I could look into the mirror and see someone who I could say was decently averagely, or slightly above, attractive. I have no idea what changed, other than that I started going out with my same group of 2 friends to a pub and drinking beer and talking about a whole load of nothing. None of this love yourself first before others can love you, which is incredibly destructive and counterproductive for someone who hates themselves. None of this be yourself. No go work out. None of this self-help freaking balls. So I guess my only advice to stop this cycle of self-hate, bitterness and isolation out of fear is to find some people who you can relate to on some level. Some fellow outcasts could work, and start going to the pub every week at least, if not more often. Even the most autistic, introverted person is still a social animal, and social deprivation is what really kills you in the end, emotionally and literally. Online interaction is not a substitute for real life interaction. Don't fool yourself. The social interaction may seem scary at first, but once you have done it a few times it will be like water to a fish that was raised on land and only recently was allowed to swim. For years I fooled myself with the I am different. I guess it was more an emotional shield against constant tormenting than anything. I purposefully avoided things that were popular. I thought that online is way cooler anyway and all that stuff. Online is not a substitute for reality. Online is toxic and should be handled with great care to avoid getting the crap bits. Still no hope on the finding a girlfriend front or anything. Due to my field of study work, programming, I meet no new women, ever, and going to clubs is why I out of my comfort zone. In addition to me not enjoying clubs due to it being overwhelming, talking to random people is still a big no-go for me, but at least I am not depressed for once in my life, so I've got that going for me. Remember, human contact is not something you would like you would like cake. It is something you need to be healthy, like water, and food, and vitamins. I don't know if I was ever a full-blown incel, misogyny, bitterness etc. But I'm definitely involuntarily celibate. Mainly I just realized that most of my problems were my fault or couldn't be fixed, and that even the ones I can change, I lack the willpower, energy and drive to ever do so. I'm a living self-fulfilling prophecy, constantly getting in my own way and setting myself back. Finally understand that there's no hope for me. Occasionally I'll still get the slightest bit of hope that maybe me and a person will be mutually attracted to each other, or I'll not frick up a friendship. But that ends quickly. Now I just wallow in self-pity, depression and loneliness and plan on killing myself in a few years. I recall getting over it. I had never gone on a date or had anyone that was interested in me that I knew of. I kept wondering if something was wrong with me through high school or if I was really that dislikable. Then, in college, I just decided to drop the concept involuntary, though I never really thought of it that way. Maybe unlucky. I swear I'd only decided to be happy playing video games and doing whatsoever I pleased when I experienced love at first sight. I was unapologetically owning doing something I enjoyed that my college roommate had quit. As long as you do that, you'll never meet a girl. Dance Revolution at the movie theater. It was New Year's Day, 2003. That was 15 years ago. We have 3 kids. We've traveled the world together and I think if I hadn't owned being unashamed of what I enjoy and just accepting where I was at that time, maybe I'd have completely let it slip through my fingers. We ended up getting married on the DDR machine we met on a year later. As a kid I freaking loved Lord of the Rings. Still do. Aragorn inspired me to study the blade. Then came the fedoras in my freshman year. The trap was set. Then I met a girl who touched my tendies, but didn't like my stupid hat. Hat mysteriously found itself in the trash. Been clean ever since. I don't ever think I was a he-man woman haters club type incel, but I did have a negative mindset toward women. I spent a lot of time on 4chan's R9K board as a teenager, even before it was a board for lonely frisky guys. They slowly started taking over the board with blatant misogynist woman hating crap and started to make me way more depressed and less trusting of women in general. I happened to find a GF around the time the board demographics shifted from a topic shitposting be-light to a haven for lonely virgins, and I just stopped browsing that particular board altogether. Depression didn't go away, but I could tell my attitudes toward women were much less negative. It's brainwashing full of echo chambers and confirmation bias. Had my GF not been there to steer me back to sanity, I could have just as easily fallen prey to the incel nonsense. I don't know if I ever went full incel. The term didn't really exist. I think of myself as a recovering neckbeard more than anything. Superiority complex. Terrible at talking to people. Weebery. The usual stuff. I definitely had an obsessive streak and definitely made several women uncomfortable. I treated them like puzzles rather than people, like they were some alien species, and assumed they were too stupid to see the transparent moves on my part. One thing that helped was going to university. This was 02 and geek stuff was becoming popular. There were women at the events I was going to, of course. Most had grown up as fans too, but the sudden popularity bump didn't hurt. Turns out your attitude towards women improves a lot when you actually talk to some. That said, I was also horrendously bullied until becoming a student, and to this day I find it almost impossible to read people or open up to them. I have friends. Logic tells me they like me. JFC, I just delivered a best man speech at one of their weddings, but I can't shake the feeling that I'm just being tolerated. That people are relieved when I leave the room and tense up when I enter. That women talking to me are desperately looking for a way out. That I'm dull, ugly, unpleasant, uncool. Truth is, I just feel like I bring nothing to the table. That my skills and attributes aren't wanted or are a detriment to ever finding love. So why bother? Why subject more people to my poor attempts? This thread is actually making me feel worse because the most upvoted replies are people who've gone on to have relationships and make peace with themselves, and I don't think I can do that. Not an ex-incel, but I've basically given up. So maybe I'm an ex by that standard. Basically, I know that I will never be happy. I don't hate women or feel like they owe me anything. I never have and I never will. I have, however, come to accept that natural selection has removed me from the gene pool, and that my lineage will die with me. I am hideous, stupid, talentless, and uninteresting. I have nothing to offer the world. My failure in all walks of life is inevitable. Even if I suddenly had a relationship, it wouldn't fix anything. I am too far gone. I found out I was trans and that solved the issue. It just so happened no one wanted to date someone full of self-hatred. To be honest, it just feels good to be an incel. It's nice to hear that it's not your fault girls don't like you, that all women are judgmental, and that no matter how hard you try you will always end up alone. It's cathartic. Your feelings are validated. Yes, I am a piece of crap and no one will love me. It feels good to finally hear what appears to be hard truth. To take ownership of your rejections. To blame it all on society. It's nice to reminisce of times past when everybody married at 20. You were basically given a free wife and you had power over others instead of feeling weak. It's not healthy, but it feels so good. Because the truth is, a lot of us incels feel weak. I grew up with a dad who earned enough money to support a full family while my mum stayed at home. He was successful. I barely earn enough to support myself while I see women taking control everywhere, and it scares me. I feel I've lost my position in society and it's all feminism fault. This is obviously not true, but it feels good to think it is. However, just interacting with ordinary people on a daily basis is the best way to bring change. When you only view women through the online world, you disassociate them from real people. They become a collective stereotype to be sought after and hated. However, by talking to more female friends, I'm reminded that women are just the same as me, who are funny, kind, and who find relationships just as confusing as I do. To be honest, I'm still a little bit of an incel sometimes. When I'm on a night out and see everyone hooking up but me. When I see people out on dates. When the girl I have a crush on started dating another friend of mine. I'm jealous of what they have, and it's so easy to turn back to those incel thoughts. However, I always just remind myself that one day I will meet someone special who is funny, smart, interesting, and likes me for who I am. It's merely a matter of time. And though I will hit a few stumbling blocks along the way, I just need to pick myself up and keep moving on, for in the end it will be worth it. I now know it's not about finding a girlfriend. It's about finding the right person. If we're not compatible, we're not compatible. I can't change that. But I can move on and keep trying. Keep dating till I find the right person. I was bitter, entitled, suicidally depressed with no apparent cause, and I blamed the people around me, mostly women, without taking care of myself. I then came out as trans, realized how much of a scumbag I was, and then went to therapy for 4+ years. I would never consider myself close to an incel, but I am becoming increasingly bitter and aware of some dating dynamics people don't like talking about. Because unlike the people on those freaking forums, the neckbeards and nice guys, I got off my lazy butt and worked on myself. Took me the better part of 4 years to get where I am now. It was a tough road and I didn't have much support along the way, but guess where I am now? I'm a fully developed person. I go to my dream college. I've developed interesting skills and people genuinely want to spend time with me. But here's the thing. My love life is emptier than ever. All that effort, I still get told I'm not enough, over and over again. How am I supposed to feel okay with that? So in a nutshell, what caused it was a feedback loop of watching rom-coms and not actually interacting with any women. What cured it was 2 things. First, I met a girl on WoW and we got together and I lost my virginity. I learned that it was just a fun thing to do with someone, not the magic ritual I had built it up to be. But in a weird way it kind of was a magic ritual. It proved that someone could find me attractive, and the resulting confidence boost and interaction with an actual person broke the feedback loop. The second thing was actually Reddit and threads like this. I read about sex and branched into relationship advice, which branched into this sort of thing. I learned to recognize unhealthy thought patterns in myself and was able to largely correct them. I'd like to think I get better every day. Wasn't a full-on incel, but was 1 foot in the water. I had a GF for 3 years of high school. We got together towards the end of my freshman year. Split up second half of senior year. I was a sorry sack of crap for a while. Went to college immediately after high school in the same city, but had zero concept of dating at this point due to both relationships I'd ever had at that point being ones where the woman initiated them. Of course, both girls thought I was cute, took care of me, liked me a whole lot no matter what I did, So it was tough for me up realize girls don't just decide they like you and just do everything. Went through some crazy times. Thought I was trans because I acted girly and submissive. Thought I was gay because I wanna be treated like how guys treat girls they're interested in. Did drag to make myself look pretty thinking that someone would see a girl in me and validate my opinions. Ultimately, dug my way out of that logic to the conclusion that I'm a nice guy. Girls friendzone me because I'm bad at showing interest. Not a lie. Even still, I'm too feminine familiar, and I'm not a butthole like girls like. It got bad enough that I just snapped one day and confronted a girl who had friendzoned me, who said something I still will never forget. You made our friendship together such a big deal to yourself, when honestly, I don't think I thought about you more than a couple times outside of when you messaged me on or when we hung out. You put so much emotional labor into us being friends and I understand why now, but like, that was super weird, and it all clicked. I was the one pouring all this emotional labor and effort into crap. I was feeling like I was owed the same thing back because that's how the rest of my life worked. Work harder, get more. Well, the crap don't work when it comes to getting a relationship. It wasn't that I was getting friendzoned, it's that I was hitting the limit of what that person wanted, and I was unhappy that I couldn't change that with maximum effort. So I readjusted my life and dating habits. I'm still a very submissive, feminine-ish guy, but I've had my fair share of dates, sex, girlfriends, etc. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.